Welcome to another episode of Stuck in My Mind podcast. I am your host, Wize, and I'm very excited. My next guest is a transformative leader and a co-founder of BeActChange. Welcome to the show, Paul Rivera.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks so much for having me.
The pleasure's all mine, brother. Thank you for being a guest. It's exciting. It's always great to speak to a fellow Latino. It's good to see that we're all here making changes to the world. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this conversation.
That's right. I'm actually excited to really be here. As you say, I think there's not enough of Latino voices out there. So I'm really glad that you're one of the people out here making it happen.
Appreciate it. So what inspired you to transition from academia and international diplomacy to entrepreneurship?
That's a great question. It's it's been an interesting journey. I always thought that I would, when I went into academia, I finished my PhD, I went into teaching at college, university teaching, and I did that for about almost 15 years. And I thought that's when I went into it, I thought that's what I was going to do for the rest of my life. That was going to be my career, because I love teaching. I love helping young people's minds open up, and have them understand things and ask questions that they never asked before and all of that. And it was really powerful. I taught at a primarily first gen kind of school where there were a lot of, kids like me, children of immigrants, children who didn't necessarily grow up with a lot of means. And, this was really my way of sort of giving back to my community, to the people that are near and dear to my heart, And as time went on, what I started to see was that I could have a larger impact than that. That the impact that I could have on people, both in scope and in depth, could be larger. And my training, I'm an economist by training, and really what I was trained in was international development. So how to help people, governments in still developing situations come up, where places where poverty and inequality and sometimes political situations are difficult, help them create stability, create economic growth, and improve the livelihoods of their people. So that's what I study. That was my specialty. And so I made that transition from academia into sort of formal development in the field. I became a diplomat, and I did that for a long time. And that felt good for a while, because it's a much bigger scope. Right now I'm dealing with, I have millions and millions of dollars that I can direct, and I can, my specialty is strategic planning. So I can create those plans and those structures to move that money and to have that impact. And then you run into, at the end of the day, and a lot of what you're doing is bureaucracy. The bureaucracy is there, right? A lot of it is under the auspices of the government or some sort of international governmental type agency. And you start to see that oftentimes what you, as a humanitarian, as somebody, as an academic, what makes sense for people doesn't always make sense politically, and politics always wins. So that part was really challenging, and it became frustrating, and it became even more frustrating to watch a lot of my colleagues who started with me in the same humanitarian mindset gradually fade into the bureaucratic mindset. One where it's just about programming the money. It's not about the impact. It's not about really changing lives anymore. And a lot of it is because they found themselves kind of beaten down by the system. And that's really, really tough to see. And there comes a point where you realize that people aren't listening to those that they are supposedly trying to help, that they're coming in with very prescriptive kind of solutions that might not be appropriate for the cultural context, and all sorts of things like that. So that was one of the big pushes for me to basically jump off from there and go into the entrepreneurial space, because what I saw was that I had the capacity to impart skills, impart mindsets to people that they didn't have before. And so I've sort of graduated from, in some ways, as I think about it, graduated from being the one on the ground in the field making the work happen to being almost more like a trainer of trainers, where I'm working with the people whose mindsets need to shift so that the resources go to the right places, and so that we're talking to the right people and bringing in the right stakeholders. So what I've seen in my career is that each time, each jump that I make, I see my impact getting larger and my impact going much deeper. And at this point, I feel really good about the entrepreneurial journey that I've been on. I can see I've unlike anything that I've ever done in my life before. The people that come to me now and literally will say, "You transformed my life. You changed the trajectory of where I was going," and that's why I'm here. That's why I do
Mhm.
these things, and being part of a show like yours is something that helps me spread that message, and that's why I'm here.
And that's an important reason to be here. That's why I do my podcast. Is just if I can impact that one person's life,
That's
to
right.
me, it's important. If you can help change one person's life, you're doing something positive. You're doing something that needs to be done, and especially us Latinos, that there's so many of us, and if we were to unite and help each other, and there would be no stopping us, and we could really be agent of change, and because right now it's like they cast us like my mom came from Puerto Rico to the United States for a better life for her children, and they cast a lot of these people who are coming now as thugs and criminals, when in reality they're like us. They want change for their family, coming from situations where that they're living in poverty. They're not.
Yeah.
They're being, the government is controlling everything, but it's so bureaucratic now. It's just so much. It's all about politics now. It's not about the people. They don't care about the people. They just care about the politics, and oh, they're touting that, oh, every immigrant that's coming in is a rapist, a drug dealer. Like, no, it's not. That's not how it is. And unless we continue to have people like yourself who keep who are doing the positive things and trying to help people
Yeah.
do things the right way, it's just not. It's just crazy how we just keep getting labeled as thugs and criminals.
I will tell you, there's a couple things to unpack there that really hit home with me. One is that a big part of the messaging that I do, whether it's with government, whether it's with corporate, I do a lot of speaking with sort of young people, first gen college students. Still, a big part of that message is one of collective power,
Mhm.
and that's not something that I think we as Latinos are necessarily brought up in. And so, for example, my mom is Mexican. My dad is from El Salvador. My wife is from Nicaragua. Um, we spend most of the last 7 years in the Dominican Republic. And as you travel through Latin America, everyone identifies as their ethnicity, right? People will say, "I'm Puerto Rican. I'm Paraguayan. I'm Colombian. I'm Venezuelan. Whatever." In Latin America, nobody says I'm Latino. It's not really a way that people identify. Suddenly, we come to this melting pot that's the United States, and suddenly we're expected to be Latinos. We're all Latinos,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of that cultural differentiation and what makes it such a rich culture is tended to be stripped away from us, right? And so we're expected to be this monolithic, this like single unit and behave as one, but that's not something that we're necessarily prepared to do,
Yeah.
So one piece of it is us as Latinos learning how to, one, bask in the beauty of our own individual ethnicities, and at the
Mhm.
same time see the commonalities that we have with each other, because I've had the good fortune to travel all over the world, but certainly all over Latin America. And as the accent's a little different, the slang's a little different, how you prepare your rice and beans is a little bit different, but at the end of the day, the commonalities are massive. So as you say, if we were able to come together in collective power somehow, we would be unstoppable, right?
Mhm.
The way that we could uplift our communities would be tremendous,
Yeah.
and I would love to see more of that.
Yeah, and it's difficult to when I'm watching. That's why I don't watch the news, because there's just so much negative stuff in there, and especially with the whole immigration thing,
Yeah.
and I'm like, this is a country that's built on immigration. This country was built on immigration. There's no one here unless you're native, or even because a lot of us Latinos are native,
Yeah.
are native to this. So for them to say that, oh, go back, like, no, you need to go back to Europe. Then, like, a lot of you are not from here.
It's such a short-sighted debate too. You know what I mean? Like as I said, one of the biggest blessings I've had in my life has been travel. I've been to almost 120 different countries at some point in my life, and it's impossible for me at this point in my life to not see that there's a human core in all of us, right? Something that unites us all as individuals, and at the same time that each of us as individuals have some uniqueness that we bring into the world, some gift that we bring in to the universe in terms of how we solve problems, how we relate to other people, how we bring other people together, and for me, that's the cornerstone of any message that I have, especially when I'm talking to young people and young Latinos who often feel like they don't fit, they don't belong. They get sometimes to like the university scenarios, and oftentimes they're trailblazers, right? There's oftentimes nobody in their family. Like, this was my situation. There was nobody in my family who had collegiate experience, my family made it to high school and they were considered very educated in their communities, so the idea of going to college and getting a master's and getting a PhD was all me. That was, there was no roadmap for that. But to show them that they belong there, and they belong there because each of us has this superpower, which is unique to you, how it is that you see the world, how it is that you approach problems in the world, how it is that you bring people together. And that's something to be celebrated. And that's not something that comes with your color. That's not something that comes with how much money your parents had or anything like that. That's you. It's inside of you, so much of the work that I do is really helping people from young students all the way to even like senior. One of my clients is an ambassador. He's a US ambassador to a country, and still he sometimes feels like, I don't belong here. This isn't my place, and he's a brown man, hugely successful. But even at that level, we have to be told, you know what, you belong here. You have a special gift. And it's something that message needs to keep coming out, and so that it absorbs, and people really believe it.
Can you share your story behind the founding of BeActChange?
So, it started out really as kind of not even a side hustle. It was just, we started it as wanting to create a movement for positivity. And it comes from be yourself, act to live in line with yourself, and change the world, right? So the people that I relate to most, that I resonate with, are the people who are out there to make a difference in the world. Some people who have a vision of themselves and their impact beyond themselves, but something that's going to spread, and like I said, this was, as this grew, we were like, you know what, there's something here. There's so many people who don't know how to listen to others. And the interesting thing about that is that it relates, for example, to this superpower thing I'm telling you about. Because if you are somebody who understands, if you understand your own superpower, if you understand what gift you bring to the universe, it separates you from feeling like you need to compete with others. And it allows you the openness to then see the superpower in others, the beauty that others bring into the world, right? And once you start to do that, once we start to relate to each other in this way, where we see each other's strengths, each other's superpowers, and we bring them together, that's the collective power, right? And so many people don't have that. They don't have a voice in their life that's guiding them towards understanding themselves that way. They don't have that experience of even talking to themselves that way in a positive, uplifting way. And so really that BeActChange grew from this positivity movement into saying, you know what, there's something much more formal. There's a much deeper problem that needs to be addressed here. And so that was really the genesis of it, wanting to have people from all over the world. And at this point, it's become sort of a global movement for us, from people from all over the world being able to ask themselves questions about who you are at your core, what's your purpose, what's your vision, and then having people align their daily actions to those visions. And then, possibly most importantly, is creating the tools for resilience. One of the things that we saw really missing in terms of the market as our business has grown is that there's tons of people out there that tell you it's super important to find your purpose. And there are some that will tell you, here's how you go about it. Almost nobody tells you what happens basically when life gets real. What happens when things happen to knock you down? Something is always going to try to derail your progress. And when you talk to people who have sort of given up on their vision, given up on their dreams, it's because life happened at some point and they never got back on that path. So a big part of our work is having people develop those resilience tools early on. It's part of your growth, developing that resilience. So when something knocks you down, it'll take you off course for a little bit, but you continue back on your growth path. And that's hugely important, especially for sort of Black and brown populations and a lot of those folks that we work with that are already getting smacked in a lot of ways, and when you try to do something and you get smacked, it's really easy to give up. It's really easy to feel disheartened, so building that resilience, building that community, that collective power is something that keeps us all moving forward.
And, for me, 4 years ago was definitely impact, because I didn't know my purpose. I didn't know what I was supposed to do in life. I didn't have a clue where. Like I have a good paying job. I have a beautiful wife, but I wasn't fulfilled. I didn't know what my purpose was. What am I supposed to be doing? And so when I was furloughed from my job, I had plenty of time. The wife had a honey to-do list for me out the door. And I was like, I need to find something for myself. I need to find something for me to do. And so I started podcasting.
Yeah.
And I started podcasting, and I would talk about, when I first started, I would talk about what was going on at the time, which was the George Floyd situation,
right,
the elections, and all the craziness and all the negativity stuff. And I'm like, all right, I enjoy podcasting. I'm just not enjoying the content. I'm just not enjoying what I'm doing. So when I decided to flip it over to interview based and start interviewing people and start talking to people, I was like, okay, this is something I like to do. And it's not like I was in media or I was nothing close to this. I didn't do any of this. And a lot of the stuff that I've learned is self-taught through YouTube University.
For sure.
I learned about microphones. I learned about audio, video, everything. And because it was something like, all right, if I really want to do this, I want to make sure that the people who do tune in are getting the best quality, or making sure that my audio sounds right, video. And so when I started really interviewing more people, and it started I started receiving messages from people talking about, oh man, I watched this episode. Thank you. I had a friend from high school. I interviewed him. He's a highly successful real estate agent in Brooklyn. And we talked about growth mindset, goal setting, and all these different things that we weren't taught, especially not in the not in the Black and brown community. That's
For
something
sure. Yep.
we're not taught. And a friend of ours who also who went to school with us, she was on the fence about starting her business. And then she hears two guys she grew up with talking about all these things and all, and she's like, these are two guys I know. If they're doing this and they're doing that, why can't I do it?
Right.
So she decided to launch a business. She sent me the message and told me like, listen, listening to you guys talk about all this stuff just motivated me to go ahead and take that leap and challenge myself. And I'm like, and that's when it really hit me like, all right, I got something here. This is something that I want to do. Is to be able to make the impact. And at first I was interviewing everyone. I interviewed a couple of celebrities, I interviewed families and friends, and
Yeah.
then but when I finally decided that I wanted to sit down more with coaches, entrepreneurs, that's when I really started hitting my stride. That's when the podcast really started growing.
Right.
And because people need to hear these messages, especially like I said, the Black and brown community, we don't have these conversations. These aren't things that we're talking about. These are not things we're taught about, how to develop a growth mindset, how to learn about finances, how to do any of this stuff. And so when I started really focusing on that, it's like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
Because then now you get people who hit me with messages like, oh, I saw this episode, thank you, I need it. And when you start receiving those, it's like, to me, like I said, if I can impact one person's life, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, because I don't know how many people that person is going to impact.
That's right. That's the goal, man. When you start making those connections like that. You said a couple things that hit me though. One was this, and I hear this so much. You talked about, for example, you had a good paying job, you have beautiful wife, like you have basically everything that the American dream says you should have, and that's what's going to bring you happiness. And yet you still felt like there was something missing in your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that is such a common thing, to the point. I will tell you how common it is. My wife and I, she and I run this business together. We last year wrote a book. The book is called Creating Your Limitless Life, but the subtitle of the book has Chasing the American Dream crossed out, because we've seen that story so many times. And it's one that we experienced as well. Like we both have PhDs. We both were making a really good salary. We both were US diplomats, top secret clearances, and the whole thing. And at the same time, there was emptiness isn't the right word, but a fulfillment that wasn't there. Like there's something more for me. There's that little voice that doesn't go away, So that's one piece of it. And for people who are out there, and I know that they're out there who are in this kind of same scenario where, you're hustling. It seems like you have all of these check marks happening, and still that little voice doesn't stop nagging you. The first thing that they should do is actually exactly what you did. Like you took action, and the action is tremendous, right? The action of, I'm going to start a podcast. I'm going to feel my way through it. I'm eventually going to get, I get so happy when I get on a podcast and I see a nice condenser mic and a pop screen on the other side, because I'm like, okay, this person's serious. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
All of that, you take action, you start fumbling through it. You don't worry about the perfectionism. You don't worry about getting it right the first time, but you got to start moving towards something like that, and that's tremendous, and then you also, as I mentioned before, I'm sure there were ups and downs. I'm sure there were times when you thought, you know what, I'm just going to let this go. But what happened? You had the resilience. You pushed through. Something inside of you gave you the resilience to push through. And now you've created this beautiful platform, and that's huge.
Oh man, I can tell you what created the resilience. In 2008, my wife passed away in a car accident.
Oh man.
Then I reunite with my father after 25 years in 2009. I go see him Father's Day weekend. I get there Friday. Saturday morning, he passes away.
Oh my Lord.
I'm talking about, it was like a 5-year span, bro, where I lost 2 brothers, an aunt and uncle that played a major role in my life. Some cousins that were part of and I was lost. I
Yeah.
was I was angry. It was just like, why are you like, I'm like, God, why are you punishing me? What have I done that you're gonna start taking all these people that especially with my dad, reuniting with him after 25 years, only to lose him. Then one of my older brother from my dad's side, that he's a couple of months older than me. He had been battling drug abuse and all that, and he get a bad batch and he ODs just a couple of years after my father dies, and reuniting with him. And it was like, man, like, I'm like, this is me. Am I such a bad person that this is all happening to me? And it took me a while, and it took voices in my head to say like, listen, this isn't. And I was lost for a while. I was drinking and not caring about anyone. Just didn't care about life. Just lost.
Yeah.
And a voice is like, this isn't your path. This isn't what you're supposed to be doing. This isn't what where you're supposed to be at. This isn't you. And so I sought help. I went to therapy. Started changing my life around. Just little things, and then I meet my wife that I'm with now, and things start changing.
Yeah.
I moved to Pennsylvania with her. I moved my family out of New York. We come up to Pennsylvania. I've been at my job now um, over 10 years, and it's just things start just life starts turning around. And then I discover the podcast, and then like, all right, now I find my purpose.
Right.
And so last year was one of the best years for my podcast, but personally one of the worst years, because my mom gets finally they say she has Alzheimer's and dementia, and she just starts
Yeah.
aging, and she just starts deteriorating. And this past February she passes away. And, and it was rough because it had been one of my best years for my podcast, as far as downloads, people tuning in, just the conversations and the
Yeah.
interviews and you couldn't tell from me doing the show. I wouldn't I didn't let it affect me on what I was doing and how I wasn't flaking out and canceling all of it. Just I could have made up any excuse to quit and then use my mom as an excuse to be like, oh, she's and I just couldn't. It just I knew she wouldn't want that,
That's right.
and so it was a struggle. But I still wouldn't let know. I wouldn't let people know. I wouldn't let people see that I was struggling inside. But I was like, I have to continue to do this because somebody out there needs to hear these messages. Someone out there
Right.
needs to see these interviews. They have to be done because I'm going through something. Yes, it hurts. Yes, but I have my wife. She supports me. I have my sister who, and for me, it was like my mom didn't live with me. She was 20 minutes from me, but my sister who spent most of the day with her, like 24 hours with her. So I'm like, oh, I'm just suffering. My sister's dealing with this way more than I am. I would go help us, yes, and stay with my mom. But my sister had it worse because she was really deteriorating in front of
Yeah.
her eyes.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, man, as bad as I got it, she's got it even worse.
She's got it worse.
So I can't let that stop me from doing this. And it was just when she passed away, it was like, okay, this was my outlet. This was where I came
Yeah.
out to be able to grieve and talk to people and just have people. I've made some amazing friends through podcasting,
Yeah.
and the relationships I've been able to build through podcasting, that it's of course I love and miss her, but having the support of so many people that I haven't met personally. Like we've met probably through screening, but and to see them come and rally around me and support me and send all these prayers and blessings, and it was like, okay, I'm not alone.
Yeah. And that is huge, man. You've been through some deep stuff. That's heavy stuff, man. And I think it's worse for men. We're not taught to communicate. You know what I mean? We're not taught to talk about our feelings.
Mm-hmm.
We're not taught to talk about when we're not okay. You know, and I see it especially in sort of Latino community.
Yeah.
You have to be strong. You have to be stoic. Machismo is real, you know, and while elements of it are good in some way, that there's a certain resilience that it brings you, there's also a real dark side to it that we internalize everything, you know. So I agree with you. I think the best thing that you did was to keep having these conversations, you know, even if they weren't directly about you, even if you weren't like spilling the tea about everything that was going on in your life, you know, just to be keeping up that communication, that linkage to other people is tremendous, you know. And like, I know you said it was a small thing, but you said that you even went into some therapeutic intervention, you know. That's a huge thing. That's a tremendous step that our culture doesn't always value, you know.
No,
so
it's not. Growing up, if you was telling people you seeing therapists, they're like, "Oh, tú estás loco."
Está loco, eso pa loco, right? You know what I mean? So you know, and the truth is that everybody needs that outlet. You know, I think of it now as it's almost like hygiene. It's like, it's just, you know, I've got stuff that accumulates in my brain and in my soul, and I got to clean that out sometimes, you know. And it's a huge step, you know. I feel for you, man. That story is just, you telling that story is impactful, you know, just so that people know that stuff happens in your life, that a lot of times it's the same stuff that other people are going through who feel super alone. And it's really important for people out there to know that, man, I know it seems dark. I know it feels like no one will understand what's happening.
But there's someone out there.
There's someone out there, you know, and like you say, that sometimes that's not necessarily in your neighborhood. It's not necessarily in your family. And the beauty of this technology is that you have ways of reaching people that you would otherwise have no access to in the world. And sometimes those are your biggest champions. Those are the people who see you in a way that others might not, you know, people who've shared that experience that relate to you, you know, and that's really important. So I applaud you for everything you've done, man, because that's, you know, when you tell the story like that, and you tell it now with the benefit of strength and hindsight, you know what I mean? And that I know that those things in the moment, you feel like you're in the pit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I applaud the work that you've done. I applaud everything that you got going on right now. And, you know, I hope the good things keep coming. But reality is like you say, that really powerful to say that, you know, your show had such a great year last year in the midst of all this personal trauma and drama that was happening, you know. That's reality. That's reality. We actually have a real similar situation happening. My wife's father is he's also on that Alzheimer's path, you know, and it's a terrible thing. That freaking disease is a thief, man, you know, because, you know, he's somebody who's an intellectual. He's somebody who's known in his country. He's written books. He has a PhD and all of these things. And to see the cognitive deterioration is just excruciating, you know?
Yeah. So I laugh because, so when her final week, she's in the hospital, and it's one of those moments where she's loose, like she's aware of stuff and everything.
Yeah.
And I go, "Ma, está bien," and she just comes, sí, estoy bien jodida. and that was her though. But that was like her knowing
Yeah.
that, like, and people be like, when I tell other Latinos, they be like, oh, they laugh because they know, they understand
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so, but that was her. That was all. That was like, and we just, everyone that was in the room just broke out laughing because she like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I'm just basically fucked, but I'm okay. Like, and so, but it was those moments that, like, that kind of like, when she said that, that kind of like, all right, we're gonna be fine. Like,
You're gonna be okay.
she
Yeah.
knows what's gonna happen, and she's just gonna let, like, just, we're gonna be fine, because
It's a strange beauty, right? To know, I
yeah,
mean, that in that final hours of the pain, that just the fact that she could say something like that, that that's a testament of strength.
yeah,
And that's a strength that runs through you too.
mhm,
So those are the moments that you treasure, that because you know that even staring death in the face, you can laugh a little, and you can know that life is going to go on, and you're going to be okay.
definitely,
You know.
definitely. So let's get back to, let's go to talk about. So how does BeAct change help high achieving individuals and organizations scale the impact?
Okay. So we've hinted at it a little bit.
Yeah,
One piece is sort of this three-part system, right? It's the identification of mission, vision, purpose. It's the alignment of action, and that's an interesting thing, because a lot of people stall out right there. Like, I know what I want to do, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to take the steps to get there, right? So some of that is my specialty is strategic planning. So basically taking that plan and creating an action plan that goes behind it. And then the third part is that resilience, right? But all of it starts with really personal, introspective questions about what is the impact that you want to have. What's your purpose? Why are you here? What is your legacy? Like, when you are gone, because at some point we're all going to be gone. When you're
yeah,
gone, how do you want people to remember you? What do you want to be remembered for? Right? What are the things that now in life you want to be sought out for? And like, this is a really interesting one, because, for example, we work a lot with Latino, black and brown type populations, and those of us who are sort of the trailblazers, the high achievers in our families, your the price of your success is that you get more responsibility piled on you, right? We're the ones who get pinged by our parents, who get asked for stuff, who are the ones who need to sort of hustle and figure out problems for everybody else, right? Because that's the task that's assigned to us. Well, you know what? What if that's not what you want to be sought out for? You know what I mean? There comes a point where you could devote so much of your time to everyone else that you're forgetting about you,
yeah,
right? So a big piece of that is learning how to communicate that to other people, right? You know what? That's great. I'm so glad that you thought of me for this particular thing, but I want you to start thinking about me in a different way. I want you to seek me out for other things, right? And really sort of that foundation of what it is that you want to accomplish, what it is that you want to be sought out for, what are the skills that you bring, and then taking that to the impact that you want to have. And so the scaling is really interesting, because I see a lot of people whose journeys either parallel something like what I did, or that's kind of what they want. They want to see in their career progression, in their life progression, a gradual increasing bubble of, these are the people that I've impacted. These are the people that I've helped. This is the depth of change that I've been able to make. And so much of that starts with what we talked about, right? With sort of that core identification, and then living your life through that. And it's fascinating. A lot of it, I think there's a lot of psychology in these things, where people are bad at talking about themselves in a very positive way.
mhm,
Um, I think they think that it's bragging, or that it's showing off, or something like that. And the truth is that it's really just something self-affirming, And I'll give you an example. I do a lot of training with people who are applying for jobs. I help them with their resume. I help them with their cover letter. And I help them prep for interviews. But everything starts with identification of their own mission, vision, and purpose. right? And so it's a very, very different, say, job interview when they get to that point, from saying, I graduated from X college with this major, and I've done these things, these are the jobs that I've had, versus coming in and saying, these are my core values. This is the impact that I want to have in the world. And these are the tools that I use to make that impact. It's so much more of a powerful perspective to say, it's more than just the training that I have. This is who I am. This is what I bring to any particular situation, And so part of, the question you ask is how do we help high achievers scale their impact? And so much of it is actually the opposite. It's to scale your impact, you have to go deep inside first and then bring that out to the rest of the world.
Okay. What are some of the biggest challenges you faced in your entrepreneurial journey?
I will tell you that it was a deep dive in learning. Like that was a learning curve. You know what I'm saying? Like I've done graduate school, I've done all sorts of things, but this was a deep dive. Like this whole idea of, for one, social media. We have a nice social media channel on Instagram, BeActChange, and it's nice now. It looks good. It looks clean. And we've sort of refined our message over time, but getting started on that was a hill to climb. You know what I mean? Because it's not something that I was taught, or my wife. We're not, like you said, we're not media people. We're not graphic designers, so all of that stuff was definitely a learning curve. And then refining our approach. And I'll tell you what this means. So we worked with several business coaches, for example, early on. And the approach that they have, generally speaking, is trying to get you to bring in revenue as soon as possible. So there's a lot of sales that happens where, that's great, you did this, but how did that bring in dollars, kind of a thing. And that's something that never sat right with me or my wife in terms of how we conduct our business, how we talk to people, how we conduct ourselves, and the message that we want to bring, So a big part of our learning curve, and probably the biggest challenge that we had, was learning to switch that business model into something that works for us. And so we don't do that anymore. We don't worry so much about, is this particular event something that's going to bring me cash directly? Is this something, and how did I squeeze juice out of this particular rock? You know what I mean? So we've focused much more on providing value, providing service, providing something useful and tangible to the people that we come across, and really having that be the focus of our messaging, of our approaches, and then knowing that having impacted people, that the business opportunities will come in. And that's thankfully exactly what's happened. Those are the people that we want to work with, the people who've seen our impact and who want more, who want to increase that scale. And that feels so much better, because it's people who, we're not cold selling people. It's people who are coming to us and looking for more impact. Same thing. We do a lot of public speaking, frankly, a lot of free public speaking at universities and for nonprofit organizations and that sort of thing. And our goal, we want to be sought out much more for sort of paid public speaking, but it's the same thing, that hustling for that paid public speaking is something that we've been hesitant to do. And when we've tried it hasn't felt very good. And so instead, almost all of the paid public speaking that we've had has come from the free public speaking that we've done, which that feels good, right? People have met us, they've talked to us, they know what they're getting, they like the message, and they want to hear more of it. And so that's been the biggest lesson, to really be authentic with ourselves and what feels good to us, and have that drive our business model. It was a huge challenge to get to that, because it feels risky as an entrepreneur to not be pushing and pushing and pushing for the dollars. But that's what's felt good to us, and frankly, that's been the path that has taken us towards success.
So you just used the word authentic. How do you define authentic leadership, and why is it important?
Oh man. Okay. So um, I'm going to start with the contrapositive, sort of the opposite of that, which is I've having worked in situations that brutally lacked authentic leadership. Um, it creates a situation where you feel in constant competition. You feel like everything is a game of gotcha, and the people who should be your supporters are looking for ways to cut you down. It's, when we talk about toxic workplaces and things like that.
Yeah.
I think that the lack of authentic leadership is a big root cause of a lot of that. So the authentic leadership, in my mind, stems from kind of what we talked about earlier. The idea that an authentic leader is one who recognizes her or his own superpower. What do they bring to this team? What do they bring to the table? And then, knowing what they bring, they know what they don't bring. And seeing that your team is the group of superpowers, the group of unique problem solvers that you have at your disposal to together create the collective power. So to me, the authentic leadership comes with the creation of collective power, of recognizing that each person on the team, from the admin, from the secretary to the senior person to in my case, I end up oftentimes being a consultant that comes into a team, and I bring a different skill set. I bring a different approach. And the authentic leader is the one who recognizes all of that and uses it to build the collective power, whether it's, whether it's something business related and, product improvement, product sales, performance, whether it's a nonprofit organization looking to have more impact in their community, or whatever it is. The authentic leader is the one who brings everyone together and creates something more than the sum of each of the parts.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. So can you elaborate on your advocacy for redefining masculinity in the Latino culture? Something we kind of discussed a little bit earlier, especially with the machismo and stuff.
Yeah, it's something that's really near and dear to my heart. When just to take a particular lens on it, for example, when you look at, for example, mental health and mental health statistics, every year in the United States, there are over 4 million Latinos who experience an episode of extreme depression. And I'm not a psychologist, so that what it means is that it's not just that you're having a bad day. It's not just that you're a little sad, but extreme depression is to the point where it is impeding your functioning. People start to notice that you're not okay. And in our communities, as we said, it's made worse because guys are not taught to talk about it. You're supposed to be strong. You're supposed to be stoic. You're the immovable object up against any force, and you end up swallowing it. And that creates this version of masculinity that at the end can be really, really harmful. And oftentimes it's from things that seem trivial and seem small that build up over time. I'll tell you my story. My story, and it's a I don't know, it's a funny story. When I was 5 years old, I have an aunt. She's my mom's sister, and my aunt is 10 years older than me. And so she was getting ready for her quinceañera. And so I was a 5-year-old kid, and she's my favorite aunt, So I was her dance partner. I was her practice dance partner as she was getting ready for her quinceañera, right?
Yeah.
And I loved it. It was super fun. I remember my grandparents had one of those huge consoles that had the colored lights that would, when you would play, when they would come through the speakers and all of that. And so I would help her, and we would dance, and we would have fun and the whole thing. And one day, into my grandfather's house comes a friend of his, and I don't remember who it is. I have no recollection of who the guy was. But I'm dancing with my aunt, and he kind of comes up to me and he says, "Qué bonita te ves bailando," like implying that what I was doing was super, super girly, like the most unmasculine, unmacho thing that I could be doing. And I saw that my dad was there, and my dad heard it, and my grandpa was there, and my grandpa heard it, and I felt, and like I could feel their embarrassment, and I almost died of shame, you know. And that was me as a 5-year-old kid. So I quit practicing with my aunt, and I basically never danced again for the next 35 years because I couldn't bring myself to do it. It's something that felt so feminine, so unmasculine, so unmacho, right, to do. And it was traumatic. Like you become you become kind of a party pooper, right? When there's music playing in a Latino family and you don't want to dance, you know. And it was tough until I met my wife, who happens to be a competitive salsa dancer, you know. So you know, and it's been a really slow re-education process, but it's really redefining that masculinity. And for me, that little snippet has been sort of the corner of it all, because it means that if I, whenever I go dancing, to me, it's me sort of embracing my vulnerability. Right. And so I think that there's a big piece of redefining masculinity and redefining machismo to say that I'm so strong, I am so secure in who I am, that I'm willing to show you my vulnerability, that I'm willing to tell you when I'm not okay. You know, so that part, it's a lot of that. And it's a lot of that education process with, especially with a lot of the younger Latinos and the college kids that I talk to. It's having them redefine what that looks like in their minds, you know. And
absolutely.
Yeah.
So how does your approach to strategic planning and visioning in your coaching practice?
Okay, so strategic planning, the key is to have an objective.
Okay.
Right. It's the key is to define your objective, and then everything that, and then there's two pieces. You define your objective. There's a higher piece that is sort of, why is that your objective? And then there's the action piece that flows down from it. And so the coaching is really, really similar in that way. Those two things really inform each other. They're sort of micro macro versions of the same thing. You know, when we talk to a person who says, I'm looking for something else in my life, there's something missing, they haven't defined their objective yet, right? So a lot of the education process, a lot of the conversation is one, defining what that objective looks like for them. And oftentimes where we go wrong as people in life is that objective is an accomplishment of somehow, you know, when I write the next book or when I get the next promotion or something like that. And the truth is that it's much more effective if we focus on like the feeling that I'm looking for, right? My objective is to feel peace. My objective is to feel that I make a difference. My objective is, you know, something that's not necessarily a checkbox, a checkmark accomplishment, but how you want to feel sort of in that, right? And then it's creating the plan. What are the actions that are within your unique superpower that are going to help push you towards that? And then understanding that it's not going to happen overnight, but it's not going to happen if you don't start now, right? So it's those small changes gradually over time that snowball into something larger. And it's the same with strategic planning. You know, we look at the larger objectives that we want to accomplish. We break that down, you know, in a business sense, you break that down almost into like a Gantt chart kind of a thing, that these are all the things that need to happen. These are how I want to sequence them out. And, you know, you start on that path, and it's not always beautiful at first. You change paths, you make path corrections sometimes, but you keep moving forward. And the truth is that as you start to see those gains, as you start to have inklings of that feeling that you were looking for, all that does is fuel your persistence to want to keep going, because it feels good. It's what you like. It's something that's aligned to you and who you are. It touches your soul in a way that you haven't necessarily felt before. And man, let's do more of that, you know?
Man, Paul, this has been amazing. I don't even want, like, I still got a bunch of questions to ask, but we're going on an hour already.
Oh
And,
man,
like,
that's because I talk too much. That's what happens.
nah, bro, this has been a wonderful conversation, brother, man.
This has been
I would
excellent.
definitely love to have you back on because we got so much more to talk about.
For sure.
This more, but this has been an amazing episode for me, to actually have this conversation with you. This has been wonderful, bro. This has become one of my favorite episodes right here. Just to have this conversation with a brother and a fellow Latino and be able to express ourselves and just have a wonderful conversation, bro. And I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you listening and listening to my story.
Absolutely.
And sharing your story. I would love to have you back on.
I would love to be back anytime. Anytime.
So we're gonna set that up and have you back on, man. But now is the time where you get the solo screen and you get to plug away and let everybody know where they can find you, everything.
Absolutely. So easiest way to find us is on Instagram, be.act.change. We have a nice website, beactchange.com. Also, we have a book, Creating Your Limitless Life. The primary author is my wife, Esther Celedon. It's available on Amazon, on Barnes & Noble, on Audible. That is the best way to find us. You can also reach me directly on LinkedIn, Dr. Paul Rivera. I'm all about building community. So if you feel like you need somebody to be in your corner, to be your champion, please feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Thank you, brother. Thank you so much.
This is amazing. Thank you so much. I love this conversation. So this has been fantastic.
I wish we had more time. It's been wonderful, man. But like I said, I'll reach out to you and Esther, and we'll set something up and have you back on again, man. Because this has been wonderful, brother. This is just it's been a wonderful, I'm like, wow, it's already almost an hour, and I'm like, wow.
It's true. It's kind of flown by. I appreciate this, man. This was,
but don't leave just yet. Let me close out the show, and we'll chat a little bit off the air. But bro, thank you so much, man. This has been a wonderful episode. Hopefully people will get something from it. It's definitely one of my favorites, man. This is it's up there now. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. It's another episode is in the books. Like I said, this is a wonderful conversation. Had a great time. Looking forward to the next one. But big shout out to my Real Wise fam, Poppy J, Brandy J. Love you guys. Shout out to the boss lady. Love you and appreciate you. And as always, a big shout out to all the essential workers out there. God bless y'all. Be safe. You know how your boy Wise does it. Peace out.